everyone. Welcome to the Herbal411 podcast. Today's interviewee is Maria Furgat, the new Endorphin Effect Acupuncturist. So please welcome her.
Thank you, Dr. Rick, for introducing me.
You're very welcome, Maria, and welcome to the family. It's nice to have you here, but I wanted to do this podcast because some patients know what acupuncture is because they've invested in it and they've experienced it. But I have some patients that just don't understand the role of an acupuncturist in the business of healing. Maria, what is the role of an acupuncturist, or at least how would you define what an acupuncturist does?
An acupuncturist is still under a doctor. We're considered holistic doctors. We are trained for approximately 6 years. We have our own clinics when we're in school, and we are to see patients from the beginning of school all the way through the end. We are to write their treatment strategies, and we also have to write the prescriptions for their herbal supplements.
It's interesting. It almost sounds exactly like what we do in medical school as far as learning from teachers, learning our didactics, and then implementing practice while under the scrutiny of a teacher, eventually kind of cutting the tethers and being on your own.
With acupuncturists, they will not allow us to leave until we have all the treatment strategies right. We can demonstrate that we have the ability to put in those needles gently and remove them gently without causing any harm to anyone. And that is our first thought, is harm no one.
Kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm.
Yes.
And some would argue that that's not being practiced anymore in medicine. I'm glad to hear that your school teaches you that. But how would you explain it to someone who is apprehensive? For example, I have a lot of patients that think that they're going to be approached by somebody drawing blood with these huge needles and just poke them everywhere. So there is a finer art to this. Could you go through a description of what you do? Because I know some people that think that acupuncturists come at them with swords and daggers, when in actuality it's very fine-tuned. From what I've had as far as a patient and a practitioner, it's a beautiful experience that doesn't involve pain.
This is true. The needles are painless. Of course, we don't have x-ray vision, and we cannot see where all those little veins are located. However, we always try to get around them. The needles are so thin, it's almost like a hair. And once you insert the needle, you should feel no pain whatsoever. They don't go as deep as they think. They're not as thick as the needles they use for venipuncture, but they are very effective.
Right. I have actually done videos where I have a venipuncture or blood drawing needle, and I can at least put in about 7 to 10 acupuncture needles within the venipuncture needle.
Yes.
And it just shows you that it's so microscopic thin or hair thin that it does work to stimulate these things called meridias without causing additional pain. Exactly. And obviously the art of acupuncture has been around for close to 3,000 plus years.
Yes.
And it wouldn't have survived the ages if it always caused pain. In fact, it has to help with reversing pain. So how exactly does acupuncture work?
So acupuncture works with your body's own energy. We locate where you have specific stagnations, what meridian is blocked. It may be one, it may be several. And we just go ahead and follow those channels with the needles. When we insert the needle, you should feel no pain, but you should feel some type of a tingling sensation. When you feel that tingling sensation, that means that your body is opening up, almost like a river that's been blocking. You remove a rock, it begins to flow and alleviate some of the stagnation and stress that you may be experiencing at that particular time.
And Maria, how long do you leave the needle in the patient, or does that depend on the disease or the suffering they're going through?
It actually depends on the patient. I will do 15 minutes to 30 minutes. However, if I see that they're a little bit more tolerable of the needles and laying still, that's the key for them to lay still, then I will go the full 30 minutes. Other than that, I usually go 15 minutes to 20 minutes. I believe that's sufficient enough to get the energy flowing and remove any stagnation they may have. It doesn't all occur at the same time. Sometimes they need several visits for that to occur, where they feel no pain whatsoever after a few treatments.
Great points. And we have a little bit to unpack there. You mentioned it depends on the visits. Does insurance cover any acupuncture now?
Insurance does not cover acupuncture the way it should. What we prefer to do is take care of it ourselves on our end, because if we go through the insurance company, it's a lot of red tape for us to get reimbursed for our services. And that's why acupuncturists typically work on their own or side by side with an MD. And even the MDs don't get paid as they should when they go through the insurance company.
That's the same experience that I had, Maria. When I graduated from UCLA's acupuncture program, I learned with the intent of using acupuncture and electric therapy. And we tried to implement it with Central DuPage Hospital when I worked for them, but it was so tough to get insurance to cover it. And eventually it got to the point where I don't think I even got reimbursed, so it was taking up more time than anything. Because of the minimal reimbursement and the amount of time I spent, I had to cut it out, which was unfortunate, but that was the model I was practicing under, so I definitely feel for what you're doing, and I understand not taking insurance, because bottom line is that when we have to take insurance and it shortcuts your treatment plan, you're actually shortcutting your therapy and the patient's success rate.
Yes.
So in that case, I think it's much better to pay out of pocket, because you'll have more bang for the buck. In the short run and the long run, you'll have more success with your acupuncturist.
Yes, and I agree with that, doctor. So many patients need these treatments.
And I have seen where some other offices, chiropractors also, and there are some great chiropractors, but they offer the option for acupuncture to be covered under insurance. But I just don't think it's the same quality of the acupuncture that you and I would probably give a patient.
I've worked with several chiropractors, and what they do is they put it under the chiropractor practice services, because it's too difficult for even them to get the insurance company to approve any services that they're trying to offer the patients.
That does bring up the second question I had, Maria, which is there are a wide variety of different acupuncturists that you can see in the area.
The licensed acupuncturist goes a little further. You could get into a hospital, however, you still don't qualify for the benefits under insurance.
So the other thing to unpack is it's not just needles. We have gua sha, we have cupping, we have e-stim, we have electroacupuncture, we have herbal therapy and aromatherapy. So talk about a couple of these, like for example, electrotherapy or e-stim. Okay. What does that involve?
Once we put the needles in a particular area, if they need more stimulation, we put on the machine. Of course, the voltage is not too high because they're usually battery operated, and it helps move things along a lot faster. We typically use that for pain as opposed to moving energy, because pain is difficult to remove in a lot of patients. So with the e-stim, we could get down to the nerve and the root of the pain and alleviate it that way.
Wow, that brings back so many memories. I remember hitting deep tissue, and not necessarily with a bigger needle, just electricity and a longer needle.
Yes.
For low back pain, especially around the sacrum.
Yes.
And I had it done to me, and I remember getting off. I didn't have any pain, but I remember getting off the table, and I was actually numb back there. Yes. Getting off the table, I felt bulletproof already. There's not only a feeling of being somewhat pain-free, but there's a feeling of euphoria that gets released coming off the table. How do you explain to somebody that they're going to feel really good after putting in a couple of needles through their skin and just letting them sit there? That doesn't make sense in the Western medicine paradigm, but I know it happens all the time with acupuncture. I love the fact that you offer aromatherapy as post-treatment continued therapy, because they can do that at home. Yes. And continue to garnish the effects of calm even after your needles are out.
With aromatherapy, we've had so many people come in with anxiety, and if we choose the right essence for them that brings them back to a place of peace, in harmony, we know we've done our job. So what I do is I blend a few oils and let them smell and see if it pleases them. If it doesn't, then I need to remove something or add. It's a hit or miss, but once you have the formula for that particular patient, they will feel good for a very long time. And the oils last for a long period of time too, as long as you keep them refrigerated. I'll introduce it to them while we're at the acupuncture visit. If they choose they're not interested at that point in time, they usually come back another time, and then I'll mix oils for them. I blend them, and they take them home, and they usually feel good with those oils because I ask them specifically what do they like. I let them smell them. Certain oils or scents will cause a rash, so we have to be specific for that person and careful when introducing oils to different people.
So aside from needles and electric therapy, you do have skin scraping?
Yes. They really don't scrape the skin. What we're doing is like a deep tissue massage. We use the guasa tool. We have several sizes and shapes. For example, this one you could go through the spine really well and alleviate some of that pain. It's very underutilized. This is one of the best treatments you can get because it's a massage and acupuncture at the same time without actually piercing the skin. And some people are afraid of needles, so this is where the gua sha comes in, or the cupping. I prefer the gua sha. Like I said, it alleviates a lot of pain. It moves all the stagnation immediately, and they leave feeling wonderful and energized immediately.
So interesting you mentioned the gua sha and the cupping and needling for that matter, because physical therapy has moved forward leaps and bounds. However, back in 2000, 2005, I remember one physical therapist who was very advanced compared to the other therapists I knew, and she was practicing A-stim. That's Mary over at Physical in Naperville. And her A-stim was gua sha. She actually used a tool that you would scrape. And at UCLA, we were taught to just use a Chinese soup spoon. And you just scrape the back and used homeopathic topicals to help the scraping. Because sometimes you would break blood vessels and you'd have a little bit of black and blue, but that would be part of the healing process. Well, physical therapy adopted that as A-stim. It got it paid for. And now fast forward to 2021, physical therapy, some of them, are actually doing dry needling, which is getting paid for by insurance, but it's not exactly, it's like brute force acupuncture. It's not as finessed as acupuncture, and they do get the job done as far as muscle spasm. So Maria, what do you think about dry needling versus acupuncture as far as what physical therapists do and what we do in Endorphin Effect?
Acupuncture is the true ancient Chinese medicine, so I would stick to the ancient form of needling as opposed to trying to invent new ways of needling, because there is no new way. The best way is the original way. When I see something that is out there that's fabulous, I am open to try it. However, right now, my opinion, the true Chinese method, Japanese, Korean method of needling is true acupuncture.
I think there's a lot to be said on tradition, whether it's traditional cooking, like old school Blue Zone cooking, or martial arts. I know many schools that I've attended, and the teachers were so old school that they would still stick to the books that were falling apart, the paper was falling apart, the pictures were in black and white, but they'd still stick to the old school tradition. And I think there's value in handing down tradition, mostly in the fact that it preserves the integrity of whoever invented it. And the philosophy of acupuncture worked before. It'll still work even with modern day COVID and diseases. I totally agree with you. When you hybridize something and you make it new, you might take away the essence of its healing powers. I think a lot of people that are coming to us do have weak constitutions, making them very susceptible to side effects, especially if I hit them with big gun medicines. I'll often get that same thing. We'll either say, oh, you must have leaky gut, leaky brain, idiosyncratic reactions, when in actuality they're just probably burnt out. So going the approach of needling or gua sha or herbal medicine, aromatherapy, might be a more gentle approach or entry level to get into the healing process. In fact, do you have any outstanding stories of reversal of disease that come to mind?
Well, I had a gentleman that broke his toe. He went to the hospital. They told him he would be off work for 2 weeks. I asked him if he was open to plum blossom. Plum blossom can be very uncomfortable, but is also very effective. So I went ahead and I plum blossomed his toe, and he was in a great deal of pain because I had to move that stagnated blood. He cried a little bit. When I was done with him, the very next day he called me. He was able to put on his shoes and go to work as opposed to staying home for 2 weeks. That was amazing to see that man's toe back to its normal color within a day.
Nice result. Plum blossoming. I did use that a long time ago. It was for a toe, I believe, because that's where hangnails usually go, ingrown toenails. And you got to get somebody a boot. They look ugly because you got to cut away and destroy that nail bed. It never comes back the same, but I remember having this turn around real quick. So it sounds nasty when you make anything bleed, but part of that stagnation and flow thing with traditional Chinese medicine is to allow movement. Just that concept of movement or stagnation. Just sitting down for COVID and sitting like this for 1 year, you know that's bad. Not only for getting creaky bones and joints and back pain, but also for gaining weight and being bored. So just the concept of stagnation, you should be able to entertain, well, I guess if the toe is stagnant, that bad things would happen. So if I move the toe, better things will happen. So even if you don't understand acupuncture, just realize that there are some really beautiful stories. I have a couple myself. Do you have any other stories, like for back pain? Because that seems to be a common thing.
I had an older woman, and she came in. She had a nerve stuck in her back where she couldn't move, and she kept saying it's a nerve, but she went to physical therapy. Her doctor put her on Flexerol, and she was getting a lot of pain medication, and then she was getting sick as a result from the pain medication. So she came to see me, and I went ahead and did acupuncture exactly where she showed me it hurt. The minute I removed the needle, she said she didn't feel any more pain. I was amazed myself how quickly it worked, but acupuncture really has the ability to help your body heal itself without all the extra medication and therapists. And I'm not saying they're bad, I'm just saying that acupuncture alone can open up a lot of avenues to a lot of diseases. So we could remove them from the body, or at least help the body heal on its own.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. I forgot how good these needles are. But again, I feel remiss because I haven't been able to practice because I've been a doctor. And that's why I'm glad to have you here, Maria.
Thank you.
And I think that we can do great things together. So I appreciate your time. I guess we can look at each other now. I really appreciate your time, and I'm glad that you're here because I think people need it. How they would find you? Obviously, you're here at the Endorphin Effect, but how do people find you if they're looking for you?
They could also go online, Essence of Spiritual Balance, and all the information will be there.
And I can put a link to Essence of Spiritual Balance on the bottom of this video. So please check out Maria and check out the Endorphin Effect. And if you haven't, please subscribe, like, and share this with other people who are interested in healing the natural way. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.
Thank you. Like us.